Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another of our sessions on artificial intelligence and archival practice, a series of videos that we're presenting under the auspices of ICA's PCOM and with the very generous support of the National Library and Archives of the UAE. In this series of videos, we'll be exploring various aspects of artificial intelligence and trying to examine in a little bit more depth some of the practical implications of their use for managing archives in various formats. And in this particular session today, we'll be having a close look at the management of photographic archives, the particular issues and challenges faced by archivists that are looking after a collection of photographic images, be they black and white, colour, accompanied by text or not accompanied by text. And to have this discussion today, I'm very pleased to be joined by a number of our ICA project team, Saman Qureshi, hello Saman, Estelle, hello Estelle, welcome, Moises Rockenbach, very good to see you Moises, and
Hello.
Claudia Escotto, hello Claudia. So look, let's jump straight in, and for the first part of this session we'll be watching a demonstration from John Balean from TopFoto. Myself and Margaret Crockett had the opportunity to have an interview with John, and he was kind enough to give us a demonstration of his software and walk us through some practical applications as he's managing his photographic archives. So let's just have a look at that demonstration now. Well, welcome everyone to another in our series of discussions as we explore AI and archival practice. And for this session today, I'm very pleased to be joining Margaret Crockett for this session.
Hello.
As we focus in on some of the challenges around appraisal and description in particular. So hello, Margaret.
Hi. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here and involved in this project, and particularly in this photographic archive and artificial intelligence session. So there are a lot of challenges in managing photographic archives. Some of them are to do with appraisal. We have many similar images. Which ones do we keep? Do we need to keep all of them? And that can depend on the context, of course. Some of it's around the varying quality of the images. We also find sometimes the identification of the subject and the context very challenging, particularly where they're isolated photographs, not part of a series. We often need to describe photographs at item level, which for many archivists is challenging because of the resources needed to do this, and it's not what we're used to doing. We're used to describing at series level. Copyright is more complicated as well with photographic archives. It's hard to know where the copyright resides. It can be more than one owner. The date of the expiry of copyright can be challenging to identify as well. And the preservation needs of photographs are different from those of paper and digital archives as well. And I think a final point is photographs are often seen to have a different value from that of other archives. They do have often greater financial value, and they're often seen as more objects or museum objects than archival records. So it's interesting to discover and explore how artificial intelligence can help us with some of those issues. And I think in particular, this session is going to be looking at describing and captioning photographic archives.
And today we've got our invited guest, our expert on the topic, John Balean from TopFoto. John, maybe if you could start perhaps by introducing yourself, introduce TopFoto and your role at TopFoto.
Yes, so TopFoto is an independent image archive. It's primarily looking at commercial licensing, but it's made up of 20th century press photo history archives. So we have about 5 million image objects, we sort of guess. and as time's progressed, we are now much more conscious about that we are the guardians of this visual history. So we have to save it, we have to preserve it, and do all of the things that, you know, a traditional institution would have to do. And we obviously have to fund it through our licensing. So, you know, the copyright is obviously an important part of that. Other roles I do, part of Photo Consortium, and I'm also working on ICA Guide of Photography Rules with Margaret, which is how we came to be here all today. So all of these things are really looking at this preservation of archive and making it, sort of saving it for the future, because photographs are very tangible sort of things, and they're fragile and disappearing, and to save them and to do it quickly I guess is the challenge. So we've been digitizing since the late 1990s, mid 1990s or so at TopFoto, around the time that I started in 1996. And the standards and the way you did it and the technology is all shifted. We almost learnt as we were going along. And now we've hit a new phase. You know, cameras, you know, went shifted also from scanners to digital systems. So we have a phase 1 camera system to help digitize the negatives now. But the real challenge that we've always had is adding the textual information, the metadata, because it's always taken about 5 times as long as taking an image. And now with a camera, you can, you know, get that in a fraction of a second, plus, you know, moving it over, etc., leaving it. But the text has been difficult to add. There's lots of manual processes involved, lots of fields to check and put in validation. And AI has now come up as a new technology which may be able to help with this. So that's what we're trying to do, to accelerate basically the digitization process, to get the text on more quickly, to make it accessible so people can find all of those images, both to enjoy and to license.
Thanks for that, John. It sounds like it has a lot of potential to help archivists in their work. I think you're now going to give us a demonstration of DataSheep, as it's known.
Yeah, so just a quick description on DataSheep. It was actually developed by a friend of mine through sort of a chance discussion, really, about what he did, and instantly the need and the solution to a problem came about, and he thankfully has helped develop this, and it's still under development, so you have to take that in mind as I demonstrate it to help with this particular problem. So I'm going to share my screen now. So if I flick over to here, so there's me looking a bit like Napoleon in the archive of TopFoto, and all of those boxes have got INP negatives. It's a collection that we've got all rights to at TopFoto, and it's typical of quite a few negative collections. One of the interesting things about press photo archives is that the images and the caption were stored together, and the captions are very detailed and very useful and actually undervalued as part of the record of the photographic archive. So we're trying to digitize a large run of these INPs. So we have the pictures, which are mentioned as digitized, so they all come up there from the phase system. And then I decided that we would do the captions separately because OCR was going to happen at one point. I mean, we'd tried OCR several times without success. We tried people reading the captions into like an audio so that it would come up to try and speed up the process. And then I met this friend who did OCR, and I said, oh, maybe you can have better success with the way OCR works. So the first step, all I was thinking was, we're going to get a reasonable OCR caption out of this. So I'm going to show you the DataSheep bit. I've just pulled out some sample images. So when you go in, you build a project. So I'm going to call it test, create this. And in the project, you have fields and you have rules, basically. The two things that sort of define it. I'm going to add a picture to start with. Let me get station back to grab it in. Control. So I'll grab one of these texts and put it in and upload just one for now. So it's in there now. So now I've got to add a field. So let's add a field. I'm just going to call it caption. And you have to give it a validation of text, date, or an integer. So I generally put most of it as a text. And then we have the rules on this side. These are the ones I've created. I'll show you a little bit more detail about that. I'm going to put this caption in here and call it caption. This is a rule that I've said, which to remove the line breaks, correct spelling and grammatical errors, and output in sentence case. And now, if I extract the fields as well. So this is how the OCR read it. And this is what I sort of expected it to sort of get. And as you can see, it sort of matches the image. So we've got the top line, the next line. So everything's sort of broken up into these parts. But that's not very good when you want to merge it into the records, because all of those line breaks and things are quite disruptive visually. So this caption information then has changed it into the sentence. And as you can see, it's done a quite good job of doing the OCR and getting all of that text information in. So I'm going to go back to this project, which I've got the demo. So I've built all of these fields. So these are the common sort of fields we use at sort of TopFoto to merge, and what I thought was useful to try and extract from all these text records. What's just been built now is the caption line. Instead of having just that text that comes out initially, the first sort of text thing can be written in these post extraction instructions, so that as it extracts the text, it's actually applying that rule. And all of these rules are through ChatGPT. So that's the AI element of it. So the OCR is just an OCR, which I guess has been trained and built on, looking at text and getting better. But it's not doing anything other than looking at the text and recognizing and putting in. The filtering is the thing that's become very useful, this extraction, and that's all done by AI. And what you really need to understand is how to prompt it. And it's taken a little bit of time for me to try and find the right prompts to do it. So, writing this sentence rather than improve the caption, because if you write improve the caption, AI then doesn't do it word for word. It starts messing around with it, and you can get you start becoming from truth to fiction because it thinks this would make a better caption. So you have to be fairly careful about what you say. Dates, again, trying to recognize dates. So you build these rules. I guess I should go up to into the rules section. You can write as many rules, so you can create new rules and basically just write in what you want to create. You choose what validation, and then you do your AI prompt, basically. And what it's looking at, initially it was looking at the extracted text, OCR text, but now we'll be looking at the extracted text after this post-extraction rule. So instead of just having the loose sentence, it will actually do it from whatever's in that extracted text book. So I've got it to recognize a photographer, a source of an image, which is a negative number, which is basically on all the captions, a headline, which is a title, basically, as it said, try and find a title in this. City, province and state. Now, I found that when try and find a city within this text might not work, but you then, if you write identify in which country the image was taken, it does a better job, because there's a lot of information about so-and-so from somewhere or other, or, you know, so they're in the picture, but that's not where it was from. So identifying a town or city where the image was taken is a more accurate prompt. And all of this is developing as I go to try and work out what's the best way of getting the information out.
John, can I ask a question in there? So if I've understood correctly so far what you said, so you're using ChatGPT to further sort of research the text which is in that caption. So if the caption mentions Chelsea, then you're relying on sort of ChatGPT to understand that Chelsea is in England, for example. Is that
Yeah,
have I understood that correctly?
It's done a few interesting things as a result of that, because it will find the country, or this, you know, if there's only a city mentioned, as you said, if it says Chelsea, and then I've written on the country, identify the country, it will know. Yeah, I guess it's got it in its database. Maybe there's a few Chelseas in the world, but this one from that event, maybe that event is somewhere in a Wikipedia page or something, and then it will link that is actually in the United Kingdom.
Okay,
so it's
fascinating.
it is quite interesting, but it's all about validation. I'll just throw in, so I've done keywords. I found that keywords is not particularly useful. It's on the list. I always keep it there, but I create 10 keywords, output as a comma separated string, because that's quite useful to have to separate all the words. It works, but it's a bit hit and miss, as we'll see from the results when I get things out. And then I've got this supplemental categories. It's actually a category list. And if you see here, from the following list, choose the best line that matches the extracted text. These are actually all line breaks, but these are TopFoto's 26 main category headings: art, literature, beauty, ceremonies and customs, child and youth, defense. And it's does a pretty good job at choosing which is the right category from the text. And I've asked about seeing if it can link to like the Getty AAT or Wiki, data, so some controlled vocabularies, which I think it could do, but haven't fully tested that yet. So I think that's somewhere we could go a little bit forward to get this constructed data. So I'll upload those. I'm going to add the files. So these test images that I pulled in here, as you can see, some of them are sideways. Some have got handwritten text. So I chose a few varying elements just to show you how it kind of handled it. Take a little bit of time to upload them, but hopefully
while that's happening, can I ask a question? I noticed one of your instructions was to translate from French, and I think
I'm going to show you.
Great, yeah.
Show you what that does, because I've got another example to show that for the backs of pictures. But this is particularly for the INP negative project. So this is a very typical view of what they look like. I can grab.
What does INP stand for?
Oh, it's International News Photos. Right. So it's Hearst's International News Photos. So we managed to acquire UPI London Archive, United Pictorial Picture, UPI London Archive, and that was made up of UPI, INP, and Planet News in the UK. In the US, it's slightly different, but yeah, the UK archive of UPI contained those three. So It's one of the major parts of that collection. So it's a sub collection, a sub fond of UPI INP is. And we started doing it because 1953, it was the coronation anniversary, and then we just kept doing the run. So we're sort of in 54 now, but so we're a little bit behind. We really need to get ahead. Part of the wait is actually because the digitize has been going on quite quickly, but the text has been building up in waiting for this to sort of develop so that we could then merge all the captions. That's a typical sort of caption sheet. And I guess, and sometimes that's the sort of neg bag of it, and there's the number and when it's handwritten. So those are in. I'm going to press the extract text to start with. So that extracts the OCR element to start with, and it's also applying that first AI rule prompt, which is, for me, was to remove the line breaks, correct spelling and grammatical errors, keep the first sentence in uppercase. So they always usually start with uppercase. I took that out at one point, and then I sort of re-putted it in because I think it makes a better title heading. It's clearer that that's what it is. And now I'll extract the fields. So that's all of those 10 fields, however many fields I've got there. It's now applying the AI prompt to extract the filter, to implement the filter to do all of those parts. Hopefully that won't take too long, and it works in the background after you've uploaded it. So I did 500 or so yesterday, and I clicked the extract fields part, and then I went away and did other bits and pieces, and then came back to it, and then it had completed. So that was good. So you might have to skip through this bit, so take a little bit of time to get. So here we go. Yeah. So that now it's done the extraction. So I'll click onto one which has got a bit of a caption information to start with to see. So this is the extracted text. So it's kept that first sentence, as I said, in capitals, because that's what I asked it. And that's that top title line, because that's quite a standard format of the way IMP did it. And then it's got all of the rest of it, the date, the queen, blah, blah, all of that's there. And then this is what it's found to extract. So it's found the created date, which is actually incorrect for that one, funnily enough. A source, which is the negative number, the headline, which is usually it thinks the title's a good enough headline, but not always. A city, province, state, country, keywords, and it doesn't look like there's a photographer in that one. Let's see if I can find one that does have a photographer. That's just the Battersea Power Station, so it has read that handwriting, which was pretty good. It actually, and this is where you were saying, David, about it knows that it's in London and the United Kingdom. That the system, without having any of that information in the text, it knows where that Battersea Power Station exists. So it's written it in there, which is quite useful. Again, it's got places.
And the keywords, it's quite interesting that it's extrapolated all of those keywords just from Battersea.
Yeah, Battersea Power Station. Yeah, it's separated them all. It's done in different bits. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I guess it depends on, the system we use at TopFoto is an all search, so it doesn't matter which field, it will find it. A lot of commercial libraries actually just use the tags or keywords to search with, which means you have to stuff all of the caption information into the keywords as well, which is a little bit of what it's done, I presume. That's quite a long caption. It hasn't got the photographer name in that either. Maybe I haven't, be a bit silly of me if I haven't put a photographer. Oh, here's picture by Aubrey Hart. So hopefully, yeah, there it's got in the photographer, it's found Aubrey Hart. Yeah. So it knows that there's a photographer. It's got the date right on that. Star Goes Shopping, Valerie Hobson, It's the King and I. So that's the simplicity of it. And if I go back to the projects, I'll click on this one because it's gives you a bit more information, I think. So this is the one I did. I finished it yesterday, actually. You can see a couple of others which have got sort of not a lot of information. That's a typical negative bag. So it gets some parts. So it all needs validation. But the thing that I wanted him to do was I needed to be able to import it back in. So the export data function is, so it's quickly exported all of that data. So it's come on my other screen. I'll drag it into those field headings. So it's the file name, but which is quite important. So you have to have the picture name matching the file name so that you can then import it. And then you have all of the field headings at the top. So I would change that to caption because that's what would end up being merged. And then have that as asset because that's what I link to. And then all of those are the standard headings. And that's it in a spreadsheet. And I find that an easier way of actually validating and cross-referencing the data. If I put it in the asset order, the file name order, I can then go down. You can see where it's not got any dates, but the accession dates are generally the same because they all run on the same day. So the blanks, you see all the photographers' names on the side there. And if you go down when there's sort of blanks, sometimes you'll have this A, B, and C. So they didn't have the caption on the subsequent negatives. So then you can copy and paste the main image with the caption onto the others without having to do much extra work. So just copy the line and paste it in into those ones, and it's pretty quick. It's pretty simple, and it helps. It's saved so much time by doing this that I can then import all of those records back into the images and upload them on the system. So I could probably, well, I'll show you those images later, but of course that's a very specific use case. So the next part I wanted to show you was the image backs. So if I click on that, so it hasn't got the extracted text. So if there's nothing you can do in one by one. So this is going to re-extract that text with the rule. So this is and then I can re-extract all the fields just on an image basis rather than a whole batch, as it were. That will do a similar kind of thing. So it's got that. I was going to add one. So it's found all of that information, which is good.
Yeah.
This is the one on its side. And as you can see, there it's picking up all of this information as well, and all of these other bits and pieces. So it's quite extensive.
Yeah.
And this one, even though it's upside down, I'm pretty sure it just should pull out the French part. So it's pulled out this bit. It hasn't pulled out the United Press photo, although it has under there maybe. Or no, that's that bit there. So that's okay. Before I extract the fields, I'm going to go back into the project and I'm going to add a couple of these rules. So it was the translate from French text. So that's in that one. Copyright, and there was a capital or something. uppercase only. That's what I was going to do. So I'm going to do this translate from French. And I'll do copyright. And I'm going to add one more, which is uppercase only. I haven't done a lot of backs of prints, so it's all a bit of trial and error from the way I've been doing it. And so I'm going to extract the text again. So extract the fields again. And you can go off and make a cup of tea, I guess. And
So I think also it's not just that it's quicker than the alternative, but also it's going to help support standards compliance and metadata schemes, because you can set it up to comply with whatever governance structure you operate under. So it's consistency, isn't it?
Yeah. So in this example, I noticed in the text that it's got copyright. So this is the field I added for that copyright, and it's found that it's Planet News. So it's looking for that.
Great.
And then if I go on to the French example, so this is the French example. And I asked to translate from the French. So this is the translation that it's found, which is not too bad. This bit here, I think that was bureau, and it's only partial. So you can see sort of there, it's actually Paris bureau, but it hasn't read that because it's only a partial. But what you can do once you've got this is you can copy it and then actually put it in the extracted text field. So now the English is in there, and you can edit through that. So in our photo, she's leaving Dior, and then all of this information underneath. If you wanted that as a caption, you could just have that part as the caption. I don't know, maybe I've got rid of the date as well. So, I could add one April 1960. And then I can re-extract the fields, and it will do it based on this the new text that I've written in, rather than doing it from the OCR text. So that's quite useful if you've just got an image. If you're doing it a different way, you can just be typing or copying bits and pieces in to pull out that. So then it's got the created date. Source, it hasn't found really anything. That's kind of a codey bit that I've written there. Headline, where it is, and everything. So that's pretty good. I even found the copyright bit.
This application, this DataSheep, it takes care of that, all the APIs and the interfaces that are required to reach into ChatGPT in this case.
Yeah.
So that's all taken care of within that application. Is it? You didn't have to personally develop that code yourself. That's within DataSheep.
Yeah. So the BlueBox people who have built DataSheep, they've done all of that work. So that's what they've really developed. So I think the OCR is actually done by a different software, but it's again all cloud-based. So that the OCR is pulling in the initial text, and then all of the filterings are done through an API to ChatGPT. So it's putting those queries in, and each one of those is therefore a separate query.
Can I just finish off that other discussion, yes, John? On the prompts that are used to task ChatGPT or whatever the model is, presumably this could point at some other LLM other than ChatGPT. And because I think there's a certain expertise developing now in the profession, isn't there, to be a prompt writer? It is a certain skill that you need to acquire to write the prompt. Is that fair to say?
I think there is a little bit of skill. It is it is fairly natural language, but you do find that you get unexpected results. So there is some trial and error. And I would say for the researcher or the person of the future that's going to be doing this kind of work, that's the skills they're going to need, is understanding the best way of getting the information out. And then that's a developing thing. I think, you know, there's these prompt engineers or whatever they were at the start. They were getting, you know, they're supposedly getting huge sums of money to be able to get the right image out of an AI system or something like that. But I don't know if that's a reality. But I think it's going to be part of our working life is to get the useful information. And kids right now, I would say they're right in the prime for doing that anyway, because if they're using ChatGPT for their homework, you know, they're being discouraged from doing that, but I'm sure they're doing that in any case. And it will actually add a skill that they need at the end of the day to make so, you know, whatever you think is discouraging, I think is actually useful. And they've also been quite a few surveys for creators, you know, that AI is taking away from the creator, which is true. There's some very scary competitive, you know, as a licensing agency for images and for an agency that wants everything to be factual and real, there are some big threats with generative AI. But also the surveys say that creatives are using AI quite a lot as a tool to get inspiration, to start the journey, to help them with their creative process. And for us, I mean, TopFoto came out with a generative AI policy quite quickly, that we weren't going to accept anything generative AI, and that we have an archive, it's all real. That's a USP, and it's a must because of the factual basis that we've got. The stronghold that we've got is the strength core KPIs is that it's real and factual. So we didn't want to infect it with all of this generative AI stuff. But this AI tool, you have to be carefully monitoring that it is outputting the real, and it's matching, because it's based on the real text. As long as it's outputting the what it's got on the caption sheet, and then using that as a basis to then do its search filtering elsewhere to find the countries based on the cities named or other parts in that image, and you validate it, then it's perfectly fine, and it speeds up the slow process. But I don't think it's going to replace a worker from doing that research. It'll just help them speed up the research.
It does kind of some of the grunt work, doesn't it, basically? Otherwise you'd be typing it in.
Yes, exactly. And that's where we were before. You know, we were all manually typing all of those captions in, and you make spelling errors and you do all of that. I mean, there's plenty of spelling errors within these captions, and it's also just correcting some of those as it goes as well. So it's doing lots of I guess mundane, boring processes just to help accelerate.
Yeah, but they're painstaking and they're really important in archive work, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Margaret.
Yeah, so my question was really around the DataSheep application has the images of the text, the original text, and it has the metadata, and then you showed us how you export it into Excel, and then you can clean it up and export it back into DataSheep to clean up the DataSheep entries. Is that right? That's one thing you can do with the Excel spreadsheet. So when you said you had like A, B, and C, and you needed to put in the B and C, copy and paste the B and C. Is that what you do? Is that how you do that?
The way I do it is from the spreadsheet, I import that straight into the images, the metadata of the images. And then then the datasheet file, I don't actually need. I tend to erase it, but I'm not quite sure how people will do it themselves. They might want to keep those records in the DataSheep storage, or they might want to clear things out as they work on projects and move on. I sort of certainly seen it as just a stepping stone workflow of getting that text out and then putting it in. I could keep the spreadsheet locally then. I don't need to necessarily import stuff back into DataSheep. One thing that I did sort of think, however, on that importing back into DataSheep is that we've obviously got lots of legacy files. And because it's done it on text-based, if you've done lots of images where you've just done a caption or haven't got a lot of that other information, you could export your text, your records into a spreadsheet. And a next stage, it's not there yet, but I did mention at the start, and it's feasible to do. So instead of starting from a visual record of text, you can start with a spreadsheet of text, and then it will use that as the extracted text field to do your filtering.
Right. Yeah.
Which means cleaning up legacy records, sanitizing. There's all sorts of applications you can do to find specific parts within it. And so I think that could be a useful knock-on application of cleaning up legacy data that you didn't do so well 10 years ago. The future application would, I mean, not for necessarily with DataSheep, or it could link with that, is actually the visual object identification, which is very common now in certainly the commercial image agencies of reverse image searching, but also finding so it's a bit like the keyword part of it, except the keyword part of it would be built from the image itself. So you throw the image in, and then it would identify objects, people, places, and that's already sort of happening. And I think that will be another part as we go forward for image search and search discovery. Somehow we've always ended up just with words, because the search engines are a word-based thing. So we're typing in a word for retrieval. But more and more we might be using other images to find similar images to this, or those which makes sense in terms of language, really. Because if you have the internet is very heavily English, I think. So finding interesting, unique archives in different languages or in English, if English isn't your native language, by using a visual search of dragging these bits in to find information, or having it automatically translated, like the DataSheep example, as you just typed it in, the AI query would then throw it in, rather than having to have the keywords in all of those foreign languages. It could do it on the fly, for example. That is going to be very useful for search discovery, I'd say.
So my question about the languages was also, obviously you could translate from any language.
Yeah.
Because they're using, presumably they're accessing some kind of translation, online translation service.
I obviously haven't done it a lot myself, but it does. You can search, and the text can be the rules can be written in a different language. So the actual tool is a multilingual tool.
Great.
If you wanted to export it, you don't have to export it into English.
The language becomes more of a challenge when you're using a language that doesn't have the same alphabet. So Arabic and Chinese, ICA has had challenges with that, for example, with the online learning platform, I know.
I'm presuming there's enough information for these LLMs to understand as much detail and to produce accurate results from languages that aren't so prominent as English, because the data pool of English must be enormous versus, some languages. So be interesting to see how it performs and whether it does a reasonable job in a different language.
And thank you for being so open and generous with your time, John. Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It's it's quite an interesting project that we've been doing. So I'm hopefully it's useful to you and your members as well.
No, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was a pretty good and comprehensive coverage of one particular way that AI is being applied to a photographic collection of archives. And there's quite a bit to take in there that John walked us through during that discussion. I'd just be very interested to hear from the team here some of the key takeaways, some of the key lessons or insights that each of us has picked up on out of that presentation. Simone, perhaps I could start with you. What were some of the key things that you saw there?
For me, I think because I also deal with a lot of photographic archives, that there's one interesting key takeaway message was that the user, based on their specifications and need, can categorize and add keywords. And I think that was one of the most interesting part of how this tool can be used.
Yes, it was certainly a major labor-saving measure that he showed us through there with that. Estelle, what did you take from that presentation?
Bon, j'ai trouvé la présentation très intéressante. Il faut juste adapter les questions par rapport à la thématique. Mais l'introduction est déjà bien. Il faut que les questions qu'on va aborder vraiment touchent la thématique.
Thank you very much. Claudia, your reactions?
Muchas gracias. Mi intervención va a ser en español. Bueno, pues ha sido una presentación muy interesante, sobre todo para mostrar los beneficios que tiene el uso de la inteligencia artificial, sobre todo para la organización, la clasificación y la conservación de los archivos fotográficos. Esto, sin duda, bueno, para la inteligencia artificial nos va a permitir también, como ya se mostró en la presentación que nos hace, la clasificación automática de diferentes fotografías, que a su vez nos va a permitir el análisis de grandes volúmenes de información, y con el uso de algunos tipos de algoritmos, pues podemos extraer algunos datos textuales. También esto nos va a permitir un etiquetado inteligente y que se haga también una agrupación por similitud que podría ya preconfigurarse a través del modelo que se identifique, como el que ahora nos está mostrando. Esos serían como los comentarios que haría en este momento. Gracias.
Thank you, Claudia. And Moses, let's hear from you. What your reactions?
So, hi David, hi everyone. It's a very interesting presentation. I took some topics here. It's a fascinating topic to talk about AI and archives, and specific in this topic. One thing that brings me attention, it was the capability to do the multilingual capabilities. So that means you can translate and you can use these tools in a way that you can do the translation and extract the text to many languages. I think this is one good thing you can use in many places, many countries.
It was. And you know, what struck me was that it was an invention which sort of came from nowhere. It was a discussion he was having with a colleague, and it wasn't from a big tech company. It was a rapid development, almost an experiment that took form very quickly. And I'm encouraged by that. I think perhaps the cost and the budget required to embrace this sort of technology might be coming down, might be quite accessible by a number of institutions. Look, thank you everyone for those final remarks. We will be including at the end of this session on the screen, we will have some links that viewers can follow to connect with more resources, to do some more reading and more research on this particular topic, and indeed on John Balean's work. So thank you everyone with me today for that discussion, and to all of our viewers, please stay tuned and keep watching and join us for the other sessions as we continue this exploration of artificial intelligence and archival practice. Thanks everyone.